Swami often would use the illustration when he was describing magnetism as running electricity through a copper wire or something. And I think it's interesting whenever you get a bunch of yogis together with computers, that magnetism affects everything. And I've never seen something when you have 5 or more yogis using electronics, something is bound to go wrong. I found that a lot with Swamiji. I first started my time in Ananda basically doing his tech support. I did video, but my actual job day to day was making sure his computer was working so that he could email people and keep in contact with everybody. And I found problems happened with his computer that were just impossible. They were not possible. There was no way that it could happen. And I would try to fix it. I would go in thinking, oh, I'm this guy who knows computers, and of course he doesn't. So I can just go in and fix it. And the first time I would do it, and nothing would happen. And the second time I would do it, nothing would happen. It was always the third time that I remembered that I was here to ask Master for help, and I would do so, and I would do the exact same thing, and it would work. For some reason, I never remembered to do that on the first time. I always had to go through it, and then remember, oh, right, none of this is real. So I wanted to talk to you all about something completely different, a little bit about education for life, something I'm getting involved in, and then also just the whole worldwide sharing. I really enjoy these things. They are very inspiring to me. One thing that jumped out at me was I was kind of trying not to be distracted by the screen, but I saw a little box pop up, and it said Barkiel Castelli has joined the video call. And we take for granted how cool technology is, and the fact that somebody that I'm very good friends with is watching me and listening to me on the other side of the planet right now and getting to share in this global consciousness is really cool. And I think those of us who grew up on the internet need to, once in a while, just pretend like we're old so we can appreciate the full gravity of it. So I just came back from an Education for Life conference in Laurelwood, which was a great experience for me. I had been teaching in the school for the last semester, but coming year I'll be teaching much more for the entire year. And I'll actually be teaching academic classes as opposed to other classes that were more fun-based. This time I'm going to actually have to teach someone science, and they're going to have to learn it, because if they don't, I will have failed them for the rest of their lives. And so there's a little bit more on the line, and it's fun to sort of have that kind of motivation. So I went to this conference, and people, will often ask you, what is, did you do the training online? Did you do the training at Laurelwood? Where did you do the training? And I'd have to keep saying, I actually didn't do the training. I'm one of those people. But in fairness, so is my dad, and he's one of the best teachers I know. So I never bring that up because I'm not going to be at his level anytime soon, but it does give me hope. But I thought about it a little bit more, and we were talking, we were sharing, and I found that I did have things to contribute, and part of that comes from spending 9 years in an Education for Life school. And the things that I learned there are not necessarily, the principles that you find in the book that Swamiji wrote, Education for Life, which if you haven't read it is one of the best books I've ever read. It's so practical. You could hand it to anybody and they would want to join the spiritual path. It's one of those books that kind of tricks you into loving God. It just goes in the back way and finds its way into your heart. But I realized later, once I went into Catholic high school and then public university, just how much of it had really stuck. And the things that I'd like to highlight are not things that are exclusive to education, because realistically most of you probably aren't teaching children, but if you think about it, life is a classroom. We're told repeatedly, Master said that this world is here for our education and entertainment, but how few of us are either educated or entertained. And I feel like that's the brilliance of school, of being in a classroom, is you're there to educate, and that's seemingly obvious, but you're really there to be entertained and to entertain. Being with children is one of the most profound spiritual experiences I've had, and I haven't had much of it, but I'm really looking forward to more, because they are constantly looking for how can I have fun. That's one of their main goals, is how can I have fun. And that, in that sense, that's where they are. And as you grow, you start to think, oh, I have to have higher experiences, I have to have more meaningful experiences, and so those aren't fun because, spirituality is very serious, like I should say. The opposite of. And what I found is that they often understand the spiritual path much, much better than I do, because when you seek fun first, and true fun, not just like something that's exciting, but true fun. I mean, when you see joy expressed that way, and you have spent the whole week beating yourself up because you're not spiritual enough, or I didn't meditate well, I haven't read any spiritual books in the last few days, when you find yourself caught by the infection of their joy, you realize, oh, I have to pick this up from another strand. I have to sort of start with the joy, and everything else follows. Something about education that I also find very inspiring is just that, inspiration. We were talking a lot about how to inspire people in terms of this conference, and I think that when we were talking about the last one of these, the last Ananda for the Future first annual, which I think is an oxymoron since it's the first one, annual implies that it repeats, but that's semantics, that I felt like there was a pressure for us to be inspired, and I found it very inspiring, but I felt afterwards like, oh, now I have to go do things. And over the past year, I've had a few moments where I looked back and I felt, especially after the passing of Swamiji, I haven't done enough. Like, what have I done to really further this? And I think that the biggest lesson that I learned in the last year is we shouldn't rate ourselves. We were talking about grading at this educational conference and how we should appraise how well a student has done. And should we do it just based on scores, or should we also take in participation or energy, or how happy they are, or how much they've progressed? And I think that last one is one of the most important things for us to remember, because we're only ever as good as we are in comparison to how we used to be. We're all taking steps forward. And so if you look back and you say, well, I didn't, achieve Nirvikalpa Samadhi this year, so that's not good, but I am able to control my anger a little bit better. I am able to not give into my senses so much, or I am able to treat people with more kindness. Not all the time, not every minute of every day, but a little bit more. And that's how I see the teachers who've been around a long time working with the children. They say, could you choose kindness now? Could you choose happiness now? In the moment, because children live in the moment. That's something that I think we forget sometimes. The spiritual path, the entirety of the spiritual path is happening in this instant. And if we're always looking behind us or ahead of us, then we're going to get lost in those times which aren't now. That's not where our soul is. And so I think if we concentrate on the inspiration more than on the physical manifestations of it, we'll realize that anyone who was here last year and is still here now is doing a good job. Like, if you're still here after the last year, whatever kind of year you had, you're doing a really good job. And I think that's something, and I see it all around us. We really support each other. That's something I really appreciated, because after the retreat, everyone went back to Palo Alto, back to Portland. They went all their separate ways. And, we did Joy Masters, we did these things, and a lot of stuff happened. But, it's tempting to look at it like, well, we haven't, sent out teachers yet, and we haven't done these things yet, and that time will come. And I think that as we get more grounded in ourselves and in the path, but also just in our own spiritual life, the teaching will come naturally, the sharing will come naturally. Providing an example for other people when they come here of what a spiritual person looks like. And in this case, we're speaking mostly about young people, but it's not that. But what does a spiritual 25-year-old look like? Like, can I relate to them? And having all of the different kinds of people we have here and in the other communities, I think is the most profound way that we're going to be able to reach people. And eventually, yes, we're going to have to teach, because soon there won't be anyone else to force to do it for us. I mean, you look at the speakers for SRW, and they're already starting to incorporate Melody's going to speak, Carmen's going to speak, and this is an amazing thing because we're really going to have to eventually. We're just going to have to do it. We'll be the only ones left, and there won't be anyone to do it for us. Asha's going to be with us forever, luckily, but everyone else will eventually leave. And I think that if we concentrate, first of all, on just moving forward, even facing forward, don't think so much about moving forward. We're all going to become stronger devotees and deeper souls because that's the only thing we can do. We don't have another option. If we're here and we're trying, that's what's going to happen. It's mathematics. And I think that as long as we do that and then also, support each other, love each other, and be kind to each other, we're all going to be together in 40 years and we're going to look back on this time and say, that is crazy. How did that happen? When did we become these great yogis? And it'll happen gradually, but all of a sudden, we'll look back and all we'll see is God. Thank you, Ryan.